Welcome back to another edition, and delighted once again to have a returning guest, Joetta Johnson. And she is the priestess of is it high finance or just finance?
Just finance. Priestess.
And I think I left a name out of your last name.
Joetta Marie Johnson.
Joetta Marie. Okay. So we had a really interesting time talking last time, listening to a lot of Joetta's personal story and how that was so foundational to what she's doing. I think what I really appreciate about you, Joetta, is that you're the poster child for doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been there and done that. Mm-hmm. And bringing what has been so powerful for you to the world. And that's, I don't know, that's just kind of special, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a difference between teaching out of a book, teaching in the classroom, having all of the research and the knowledge, but not having the benefit of being a practitioner. And then being a practitioner who's actually been there and done that. So what really caught my attention last time that we said we're going to get back together and explore even more was the topic of hypnosis. And you are trained in that, certified, I think?
Yes, I am certified.
Tell me about that, because it's something we don't run into a lot. I think there's a lot of myth and misunderstanding around what that is. So I'm just curious a little bit about your path in that, and then explaining to everybody what hypnosis is and how you use it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would want to start that there's a reason why I started to get trained in hypnosis and really follow that particular path of training and integrate it into my business. And I think it's twofold. One part was seeing in clients particular patterns that were very difficult to overcome with just knowledge and techniques and tools and strategies. So strategies around earning or saving or spending and debting, right? And so I'd see people get stuck in patterns, even though we would go through amazing processes that would train them how to have a spending plan and how to align themselves with that spending plan, having it be very intentional, having a vision, having saving strategies and get out of debt strategies, and then people being able to apply that. And some people get amazing results and some people not get as amazing results. And so it was frustrating as a financial coach to see some of my clients not experience the level of movement that other clients would get from the process.
Right, from the very same tools, right?
Right, from the very same tools.
Did you ever wonder if it was you?
Oh, yeah. As a coach, you're always looking at yourself like, how do I help people the most? And I think that, I've had, as a coach, when you're leading people through their own psychological patterns, you're constantly having to learn about psychology, as I'm sure that you completely understand and get that, because I've seen that on your journey. It's like a continuous training of how the mind operates. And so I had to grow myself as a coach into constantly new territory to help people the most that I possibly could. And so I was constantly refining my own coaching techniques, my financial skills, my ability to help people, and then how to help them navigate their own psychology and their own patterns and behaviors. And
I would add for some of the listeners, which you and I know this well, that it's also the evolution of yourself, the self of the coach, the self of the therapist, the self of the financial planner. When I run into myself in helping clients, and I remember one famously where I ran into a huge amount of sadness, and I thought, wow, I'm going to have to go work on that. And so many coaches, for myself, being involved with GGU and adjunct professor there, it surprises me how many young people entering this field don't realize that the first client is themselves. Mm. So I just wanted to insert that. So continue.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I love that you bring that up, because I think that in my own journey of continuously wanting to grow myself financially and work with my own patterns, I also looked at hypnosis as a tool for myself. And what I noticed is that it began to work. That, with my intentions and with the power of prayer, I blended those things together, and I started to get better and better results on myself. And so it wasn't only until, probably 2.5 years ago that it dawned on me to get trained in hypnosis, because of the people.
This is a relatively recent thing.
Yeah.
This is why I've never heard of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's, I don't know any financial coaches actually offering hypnosis. I've not seen it before, but when I go and I study with different hypnotists, a lot of them have a lot of wealth building tools in their toolkit. And so I've been training myself, not just in the logistics and practicalities of how to do hypnosis, but also how do people get better results around the success mindset, confidence, money, like these kinds of things I've kind of been digging into further and further, because there isn't very many people doing it out there that is just centered around money and finance.
I know of no one.
Mm-hmm. Exciting.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. I mean, it's such a powerful tool for helping people shift patterns and behaviors and certain ways of thinking, or even belief systems. I mean, that was another piece that drew me to hypnosis, because I'm obsessed about how to help people overcome limiting beliefs. And there's all kinds of tools and techniques out there, but which ones actually stick over the long term? Because the subconscious mind can be, it's like a vault. Once it has a strong belief within it, it's not actually very easy to change it. It likes to hold on to it because it's what it feels it's doing for us to create safety and security.
That's a really nice frame. Being like a vault, and you're not getting in and we're not letting go.
Exactly. And to me, that's just fascinating. And so I kind of became obsessed, like, well, how do you do that? Because I know that you can change beliefs, but how do you really change beliefs at a core level?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love it. And coming from you, it's, I guess, somewhat expected that you ran into self-hypnosis first, and it worked. And that I was thinking when you were saying this, that will get your attention.
Yeah, definitely.
And I relate a little bit with my journey with IFS, and ran into it, and I'm like, wow, there is something to this. And I think that's just so powerful, when you have that experience with a tool. And that's great to know that it was just 2.5 years ago that you got the training to do this. And to your point, I don't know any other coach that is trained in hypnosis. So tell us a little bit about what is hypnosis? What's going on? Is I have the stereotypical. I mean, not really today, but when I first learned of it back with a kid, you watch the pendulum swing, right? And
Yeah.
then the hypnotist can make that person through suggestion do anything.
Right. That is the portrayed kind of imagery that
Yes,
most
exactly.
people have in their minds through either stage hypnosis or in movies or television shows, primarily movies. And so movies and stage hypnosis have given hypnosis somewhat of a bad rap because it convinces people that someone can take over their mind, like some kind of mind control. And I was actually listening to like a master hypnotist the other day, and somebody asked him, like, is this mind control? And he's like, absolutely, yes. Self mind control. Because when you're in hypnosis, you actually, and when people first start working with me and we first start doing hypnosis, I make it very clear I'm not the one. Like, if there's anything that I say that the person does not resonate with, they have the power to change that in their own mind. Like, oh, I don't like that image, or I don't like that phrase, or I don't like that word. And they have the power to change everything. It's like we're in a car driving together and I'm next to the driver and I have a map. And I'm like, oh, we can turn right here, we can turn left there, and we could go here and we could go there. But they are always at choice. Like, I don't want to turn right. It's like, okay, great, we're not turning right. And so it's like, I think with stage hypnosis, it's, people can get convinced that they have to go up on stage, or somebody's going to convince them to become like a chicken or something along these lines. And it is like a stage show. It's like a magician, right, on stage. And so there are certain techniques that are utilized in order to convey that kind of experience. But when you're actually working with a hypnotist, you're going through the process of clarifying what are your intentions, what are your goals, who do you want to become. So when we look at like identity, like an identity around money, we're able to go in and understand, what does this person want? What do they want their life to look like, their behavior to look like, their identity to look like? And then we're able to go into the subconscious mind, open up the subconscious mind, the vault of the subconscious mind, and begin to put suggestion in there. But this is from the individual themselves. I'm only reflecting what that individual would like. Or we're discovering, once the subconscious mind is open, we're discovering what it believes, what its beliefs are about how things are or how they should be. And when we begin to understand that, that's where behavior change can happen, because it begins to convey through symbols or through stories. It loves like symbols. It works in symbols. And so when we can identify what symbols it's operating with and change those symbols, it can receive them and then go to work. Just like it goes to work to beat the heart or to breathe, these physical functions that it's automatically doing, we're telling it to do something similar. Oh, we want to save more money. Let's do something similar where we can put it on autopilot because it believes it's a good thing and it will go to work for you. And a lot of the people, I mean, back to like Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, he, back in like the 40s, wrote that book, and it definitely has correlations with hypnosis, because it's basically training the mind to go to work for us. So he had particular techniques he was using, and he didn't call it hypnosis, but he was programming his own mind. So that's a lot of what I'm working with people on, is how to program their own mind to do what they want it to do versus what it's already been programmed to do when we were children.
Right, right. I don't know a whole lot about neuroplasticity and the science of the brain, but what you're talking about seems to be exactly fitting into that view that we build habits, we build patterns, the vault, so to speak, and interrupting those is what we're talking about to learn new behavioral traits and techniques. And you also said, I think, in that state, in working with the person, looking at how things are and how they could be. Is that right?
Definitely.
And using symbols in this process.
Mm-hmm.
Could you give an example of that?
Yes. Yeah, I'll provide an example with somebody I'm just doing hypnosis with this particular client. And so it's a really incredible journey to just focus on hypnosis. And so, for example, like we were working on a hypnosis around what abundance looks like. What does it look like, but in the form of a symbol. And so she had two different symbols, and these came spontaneously. So, for example, one of the symbols was one tulip, and one tulip represented beauty and abundance, but it was isolated and it was by itself, and there were no other tulips around. And so this was her almost like current relationship with money. And then we did a hypnosis around, but what does the optimal look like? And it was a home, and the whole yard was just filled with many, many, many tulips of all different colors. And so that represented not just abundance, but like home, like what she really wants. What she really wants increased abundance or wealth for is to have this incredible home. And so having all of these tulips represented, nature and nature's ability to help us realize abundance. It represented multitudes of things growing that are beautiful and nourishing and alive. It represented the home space. So it provided her with symbology. And once she saw that symbology, she was like, yes, this is what I'm going for. Because a lot of times when we're trying to focus on financial goals, some people are very, very motivated by numbers themselves, like the numerical financial goal. But I've run into a lot of people that aren't necessarily motivated just by like a numerical financial goal. But when we can tie it to a symbol, for her, the symbol of the home with all of the tulips is a different symbology than like some numerical goal she's going for. Now she can tie that to a numerical goal, but that numerical goal is tied to something that she can see in her mind and experience a particular state of being associated with that goal. Then she's more likely to create this, because the subconscious mind's like, oh, we're going for lots of tulips and this beautiful home. Like, great, let's do it. Sometimes when you give it a numerical goal and it has no tie to anything, it's more difficult to hit the goal.
I'm sensing a lot of people are resonating with what you're saying right now. And I say that because I'm one of those that have the numerical goal and can get that motivation. But as you're talking, I think the even when I look at the numerical goal, there's something that I tie to that. I use the example of going on a vacation to the Bahamas this year, or saving that money in an IRA, and maybe someday spending 3 months in the Bahamas. Well, I think that's what you just described.
Yeah.
Of having the scene today, or having this multiplied bigger scene like the house with all the tulips tomorrow. That's what we're going for.
Exactly. And the more you can get into the experiential aspect of that, like some of the things that we do in hypnosis is not just see the vision, but you're kind of actually in it. And so if it's the Bahamas, you're smelling the salt air, and you're hearing the waves at the ocean, and feeling your feet in the sand, and feeling the sun on your skin. And so you're getting into this very like somatic type of experience that the body's like, wow, this feels awesome. How do we create this? Right? The more you can do this through self-hypnosis is like over and over and over again. So a lot of what I do is we not only do these kind of hypnosis journeys, but then I give people a practice. They're taking that practice and then they're repeating it over and over and over. I want it to feel like this. This is the scene I am going for. And, you know, one of my mentors, he teaches really incredible things around how to use hypnosis in this particular way. He calls it a GPS. And so he has a GPS point. So he used this to become an actor. And so he would take his GPS, which is basically going on a Hollywood movie set and having these bags and going into this movie trailer and dropping his bags just to have this particular feeling. And then lo and behold, like 3-4 months later, he was actually in that scene. That scene was actually happening.
Yeah.
He had no idea how that scene was going to happen. And so these are kind of the techniques that I study, is like, how do you create a scene that you want to like live in? Now, it may or may not look exactly like that scene, but once you can feel what it's like, you're gonna be far more motivated to create it.
So much of what you're saying is resonating with me that I could go off in about 15 different directions. And I'm resonating, especially when you said, you know, you got to be in it, and the felt sense of that. And as you were describing the tulips, I was even seeing the difference of seeing that house with all the tulips and the felt sense of that. So the smelling it, I'm getting, and I'm not articulating well the importance of the somatic experience of really being in it and experiencing that in your mind's eye. And I'm relating this to something we mentioned very quickly before, emotional reconsolidation, which, like I said, I know enough about so many things just to be dangerous, right? And this feels like exactly that. Of this is how it is or was, and being in that felt sense, how is it to just have one tulip? You know, it's lonely, and really experiencing that. And then the contrast of, well, how would you like it to be? And then really sitting with that and experiencing it. That in itself, the way I understand it, is the process of creating real behavioral change, permanent behavioral change.
Definitely.
How is this different or similar to what I would call guided meditation?
Guided meditation, yeah. I mean, there are similarities. I think guided meditation is maybe like if you imagine like on a spectrum, these kinds of tools, it's maybe like lower on the spectrum. So you can do it and it can still have results, but you're not necessarily taking yourself down into a theta state, which is a particular brain wave that allows for learning and growth and understanding from the subconscious mind. So a lot of visualizations aren't necessarily taking you through a very specific induction to get into that subconscious mind. So you get into a relaxed state and you can imagine things, right? And I've done that for years and done it in many, many, many different forms. I've been studying this stuff really for 20 years, doing all different kinds of visualization, meditations, hypnosis, like what works, what doesn't work. It's just what's going to be the most powerful and effective. And I think hypnosis is designed to really get deep into the subconscious mind and have the subconscious mind participate. Now, a lot of when you're working with a practitioner, which is just different than doing the kind of like envisioning in hypnosis, you're actually pulling out information from the subconscious mind. It's giving you information about what it believes and what it wants to do to support you, or certain beliefs it is holding. It's going to feed that to you, when guided meditations don't necessarily facilitate that.
Okay.
Right? That we can have interaction with the subconscious mind, very much like an IFS and these different parts of the self. We can have conversations with those different parts of the self inside a hypnosis. And then we're able to provide different contexts for the experiences it's had in those different parts of the self, like the child part of the self and the experiences it had. We're able to go in there and give it a new perspective. What if this is the storyline versus the storyline you've been telling yourself for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? It stays there forever until we change it. So I think that, these other kinds of techniques can be supportive and they can be helpful, but are they the most powerful? Because I'm always looking for like has the most like leverage or potency.
That's really resonating with IFS because and it's the pulling out the information in that deeper state that I'm resonating with, or drawing a parallel to IFS, is the person doesn't necessarily know what the block is.
Yes.
And in that particular state, IFS folks would call it "let's go inside," of having the conversations with the parts. I call it interviewing parts of ourselves, mm-hmm. to discover information that I've long forgotten, repressed, starting to have those aha moments of, oh wow, I didn't even know that was in there. I remember we did a training, and a therapist, we were doing money scripts and we were putting them on the wall, on paper that's on the wall, and he turns around and he says, there's 80 scripts up there. I had no idea any of them were in me. So
yeah, it's definitely like that.
Joetta, we're going to have to leave this segment here. This has just been fascinating stuff. Where can people reach you, read more about you?
Yes, so I'm on all the social media channels, and my website is priestessoffinance.com. I do have a really awesome money tool on my website that works with the subconscious mind and everything we've been talking about today. So you can just click on get my free money tool, and it will take you through a process that gives you a taste of what this kind of hypnosis can be like.
Nice. Fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here with you.
Take care.
You too.